responsibility now is to watch that as closely as possible to make sure that it's honestly written up and passed. Hopefully have something done. But if you've noticed, the last time Bernanke came before the committee, we had, the Wall Street Journal front page article, and then the London Times had a front page article. It's on, and then you saw the announcement. There were how many economists came out? 130 economists that came out, and they will love the Fed. And Bernanke said before the committee that he had to protect the public's interests. That's why he didn't want the audit. I said, the public's interest. I said, you represent the public, and here we have millions of people in this country demanding an audit. They want to know what you're doing, and you say you're going to represent the public's interest. I would say you represent the public's interest, and we need to know what they're doing behind closed doors.
Yeah.
As we struggle, we have to keep our eye on the ball, is individual liberty with full confidence that it will answer our questions. We got into this mess because of our lack of respect for the Constitution. The Constitution is not perfect, and yet it's what we have. If we followed it a lot, more closely, things would be a lot better off. We got into this mess because it's been totally ignored. It's been totally ignored by the Congress, the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and of course the legislative branch. The executive branch. What about this whole idea of writing executive orders and signing statements, endlessly undermining and doing whatever they please? And we need to know exactly what our goals are, and of course that is the striving for liberty. Why really do we want liberty? I mentioned the fact that we want liberty because of prosperity, but there's something I think more important than that alone, have our prosperity. I think the purpose of life is to improve ourselves, to improve oneself, to maximize our abilities, to take care of ourselves, assume responsibility. I think the true source of satisfaction comes from our ability to take care of ourselves and our family. And we'll do it at all different levels. So in order to achieve that, I think first goal has to be to seek truth, to find out what is really true and honest. And that is what is so good about people in crowds like this. This is what you're looking for. You're looking for the truth, and you're striving for it. And when we have our liberties and we're seeking truth, then what should we be looking for? We want to do our best to strive for our excellence and our virtue. Now, what has happened over these many, many years, we've forgotten about the Constitution. We turn this responsibility over to the government. The government is supposed to take care of us. They're supposed to make us better people. They're supposed to tell us what we can eat and drink and when to exercise and what to smoke and what to believe. And once the government takes that role, they do it at the expense of liberty. But then when they use this, the nanny-state approach to taking care of us economically, they do that by taking away our liberties and undermining our prosperity. So every time the government wants to do something for us, they're actually doing something to us by undermining our liberties and making our conditions that much worse. So. There is no reason that we should be despondent because we don't know exactly what tomorrow will bring. Just think of what happened in our lifetime. Everybody in this audience probably. It's the downfall of the Soviet system. That made a big impression on me because I happened to have been capped by a museum in 1962 due to missiles in Cuba. And all of a sudden, here this standoff between us and the Soviets. Thousands of nuclear weapons pointed at each other, and the Soviet system collapses and just dissipates. And it's an old event right now. So things can change rather quickly. But they can change in the other direction too. I think it's fortunate that that's behind us, but in many ways now, with us being the sole superpower and assuming that we have responsibility to take care of the world, that to me is a danger. Because I think that's how how we're going to get in trouble. I think it's how we're going to bankrupt our country. When we go back in September, it's scheduled to have a resolution, probably on suspension. And I hope I can get to the floor when that happens, because I want to take the time against it. It comes up under suspension, and both sides need to work. What they're planning on doing is putting a boycott, a blockade on Iran. You know what they want to do? They want to make sure that the Iranian people have no gasoline. Now that's the foreign policy they're talking about. Now, we want to preserve no gasoline for the Iranian people. And the logic is, well, they're going to get so mad, so upset, they're going to get rid of the Ayatollah. That is the logic that they use. But you know what? They might get mad at us. Because us is doing this to them. And they say, well, we got to bring them to their knees. Someday, they might build a nuclear bomb. They might build a nuclear bomb.
Give them good reason to do so.
They might not ever use a nuclear bomb, too. But they said, no, we have to stop it. Now, here's a country that has a lot of problems, but I don't criticize other countries too much until we're a perfect country, and we don't have to criticize ourselves. Today, the Iranians can't even make gasoline. And here we're told that we have to fear them and be willing to go to war and think about either us or an ally borrowing them. Because that's the Bush policy. Preventive war, start war, aggression. When they asked me once in a debate what I thought was the most significant moral flaw that we had in our system today, I said it's this idea and concept of preventive war. That makes us aggressors, that we're willing to go to war and start wars. Now, we've been meddling for a long time, but to make this policy and literally invade countries that have not threatened us and occupy these countries, then wonder why they hate us? I mean, why would they? What would we think if another country did that to us? What would we think if some secret spy agency from another country came here and messed around with our election? What would we think if the Chinese Navy came into the Gulf of Mexico and said, we're protecting our oil? What would we think if another government came and put bases on our country? We would be outraged. We'd be unified, too. And the Second Amendment would be fully used. There's a story I read recently about a German general, I guess it was after World War II, he was talking to somebody in Switzerland, and he said, you know, we had twice as many troops as the number of people you have in your country at your borders. And he said, what would you have done if we had invaded you? And the Swiss person said, we'd tell everybody to shoot twice. I don't know whether they're going to give up on bank secrecy or not, but I sort of like them. And I sort of like the idea of how they handle their president. I imagine there's not very many, maybe Tom Woods would know, but I just wonder how many people in here would know the name of the president of Switzerland. And it's a non-entity. And that's the kind of country we need. We don't need a president that's a powerful president. We need a president